Whether you're coming to our community from Florida, from New York City, from Olympia, Washington, San Luis Obispo in California, Australia, wherever you are, welcome, welcome. We are here. I wanted to offer today's Torah in memory of Jamie Guttenberg, Zichrona Livracha. Her 19th birthday would have been today. She was among the students at Parkland in Florida, the school where the massacre happened some years ago. And her father and mother, Fred and Jennifer, have been tireless champions to end gun violence in her name, in her memory. And I wanted to bless her memory and give us the chance to celebrate who she continues to be in the life of the world and in the heart of her family. Today we're going to talk about Parashat Balak, as we have been, but focus on a slightly different section. Parashat Balak tells the story of the king, as we've been speaking about, the king named Balak, who hires the prophet / sorcerer Balaam to go and curse the children of Israel. Balaam says, I can't do it. And then God stops him and then lets him go, and he stands on the side of a mountain and he offers sacrifices and is ready to curse the children of Israel. But of course, or I say of course, but what ends up happening is that God catches the curse and instead places blessing in the mouth of Balaam, and Balaam ends up saying the words, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. It is a beautiful section of the Torah, surprising to the prophet, surprising certainly to the king who hired him, and it ends up being the words that we recite when we walk into a synagogue, praising the space. But in truth, we don't quite know what Balaam saw. When you look at rabbinic interpretations, they had the same question: what must Balaam have seen? And the quote is that, and this is from Baba Batra, from the Gemara, so it's many, many years later. The quote is that Balaam saw that the tent openings of the Israelites do not face each other. Rather, each opening was behind the next one, so that no one would look into the house of their friend. Think about it this way. When Balaam was observing the people Israel, he saw that their tents granted each other privacy, what we would call the right to privacy. And in noticing that, he then blessed the people. Our conversation right now in the United States, which is not where everyone is, our conversation when it comes to the pursuit of justice that we continue to pursue and sometimes have to pursue again is now in the aftermath of Supreme Court decisions that have significantly reduced and in some cases completely denied the right to privacy, specifically when it came to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And a dear friend of mine, a leader in the Jewish community, Daphne Lazar-Price, who is the executive director of JOFA, the Jewish Orthodox Feminist Alliance, has a very powerful, must-read piece that was published by the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, JTA, republished in the Times of Israel, called Shaming Women Who Have Abortions is Not a Jewish Ethic. And one of the quotes that she makes relates for me directly to what Balaam noticed about the way Israelite society is meant to be organized. I hope you'll look up the piece that she wrote, by the way. It's a very, very important comment. If I can find the link, I'll ask someone to place it on our thread. This is what Daphne writes. I have reason to hope that this day will come, a day when women will be free to speak their truths, their lived experiences, specifically around having abortions, because in the Jewish community there seems to be less place for that, and in much of the way that men like me trip over themselves and misspeak because we have no idea what we're talking about when it comes to having a woman's body or having the Supreme Court legislate against my right to bodily autonomy. Many times we end up not only saying the wrong thing, but describing the experiences of women with complete inaccuracy, sometimes in deeply damaging ways. So listen to what Daphne writes. Judaism offers many powerful lessons about the corrosive and dehumanizing nature of shame. In the immediate aftermath of the U.S. Supreme Court's Dobbs ruling, which overturned Roe v. Wade and deprived women of the constitutional right to privacy that includes the right to terminate a pregnancy, this ancient wisdom is more urgent than ever. She says Orthodox institutions, I'll say Jewish institutions, and organizations that are being led by women know this, yet many of our male leaders are cynically and willfully ignoring women's experiences, as well as what Judaism says about the sin of shame. Now, what she says is intentionally being done by some, and I don't deny that, is also accidentally done by others. One of the things to understand, and this is going to take more work for me to understand more fully. I'm reading an article from the Center for Strategic and International Studies by Caitlin Chin, who's a fellow there, about what privacy in the United States could look like without Roe v. Wade. I have to approach this from a Jewish lens, and this Parsha is the right place to begin. This Parsha tells us that what was praiseworthy about the ancient Israelites, our ancestors, was that we respected each other's privacy. We understood that essential to a just society is the recognition that each of us deserves dignity, the dignity of self-determination. Of course, even in the right to privacy that Roe v. Wade originally established, and then subsequent rulings by the Supreme Court until this last devastating one, the recognition that the right to privacy includes a woman's right to her own dignity and health and life. This is something that the Jewish community has stood almost lockstep with some fringe exceptions. But even those who have stood as allies in a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy, often we do not understand that this comes down to a right to privacy that men are not denied. I have never had to face this question with my body. I do face this question as a husband, as a father, as a rabbi, as a brother, as a son. I do face this question, but my body has not, because no one has denied my right to privacy, not in this way. Bilam, an outsider, was able to observe that the way we set up our homes, the way we structure our cities, the way we structure our doors, our windows, we respect the right, we must respect the right to see what we see without demanding the right to see everything about you and to dictate your reality. The rabbis wondered what Bilam saw, and they recognized, perhaps because their physical autonomy was completely defined by Roman oppression. Maybe because they didn't have such a clear right to privacy, they were sensitive to what it could mean to have one. Our work as a Jewish community must be about reaffirming the right to privacy, not because Torah is about the Constitution, but it becomes clear when the Supreme Court allows prayer on the 50-yard line that religion must play a significant role in the public sphere. It might not be the ideal. Perhaps the role of faith should be a little bit marginalized, literally the sidelines of the field. But because religion is being given a privileged position in public discourse, we must make sure that we know where Jewish tradition would lead this conversation. Judaism is not about one political position. But when it comes to the human dignity that each one of us is entitled to because we are created in the image of God, we must become more informed. I must become more informed, which must mean that I read from teachers like Daphne, that I educate myself and do not stand in front of the conversation, but rather amplify it. I hope that you will make that commitment too. If you have a story that is your own, please know that I respect your right to have that story and honor you for the life that you have lived. I hope that you will help educate people like me so that we can make sure that the just society that we are called to build truly amplifies the human experiences that sometimes are not given space. We must make sure that our Jewish values animate our pursuit of justice, here and around the world. There are other things happening in this world, like President Biden landing just minutes ago on the tarmac at Ben Gurion Airport. There are things to celebrate in this world. Those would be easy to talk about. I think the Torah is demanding of us that we have harder conversations with the same passion. May we be courageous and have those conversations, friends. Thank you for being part of this community, for being my teachers, and for making sure that we remain humble enough to see Torah as something that we must learn, not something that we wield. Balaam was brave enough, or at least the story of Balaam that we receive is one in which a mercenary prophet ends up becoming a vessel of blessing. Kal v'chomer, all the more so. Let's see if we can learn to do the same. Have a beautiful day, friends. See you tomorrow.